almost never talk about this, but today I'm going to share with you the 5 tactics that they use in order to decide whether or not they're going to work with you and cover your story. Stay tuned. So imagine stepping into a new city with no set plan. You've got a map, but it's not exactly filled out with great detail. There's some outlines of possibilities, there's some places that look interesting, and there's some places that don't interest you at all. Then you open a part of the map and boom, a shiny object appears. They've got a really good look. They've got quotes. They've got a spokesperson. They've got everything you need to cover the story. And what do you think they do next? They walk in. They want to explore more. Journalists work the same way. They arrive at their desk full of possibilities. They have hundreds of emails to get through and they're looking for stories. They're looking for a story that's going to light up their day. And they navigate a sea of information every single day. And they're only looking for stories that capture their full attention and stories that they can pitch to their editors. So if your picture story doesn't stand out instantly, it's going to get lost in all the noise. If you're new here, I'm Sandra. I'm a PR expert and a journalist with 15 years experience in newsrooms in broadcast and print and online media. I have worked with over 100 publications to get clients into places like Harper's Bazaar, Forbes and many others. I've also written a book called Breaking into the Media, a journalist guide to publicity, and in this book I share my insider tips and tricks from 15 years working as a journalist. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get straight into the video. So in this video, I will be sharing the 5 things that journalists do in order to decide whether or not they cover their story. And these 5 things are things that journalists will not tell you, but this is what they do behind the scenes. Okay, number 1, they are obsessed with speed. So journalists receive up to 300 pitches every day and less than 8% of these pitches actually get a response. And sometimes a breaking news story is decided in under 10 minutes. Everything has got a time, everything has got a deadline. And they are obsessed with deadlines. When can you get back? How soon are you going to be able to give me these quotes? And when will your spokesperson be available? Everything revolves around time. And here is something that you may not actually know. But when journalists have meetings in the morning, oftentimes their editor will ask them, how long do you think it's going to take to put that story together? And they need to be able to give some kind of a time frame. So if you are slow at getting back, or if you haven't followed up with a pitch, if you haven't provided the information that they need and want right then and there, you're going to go into what they call the irrelevant pile or unreliable pile. So if you want to get your pitch noticed, concentrate on your subject line and concentrate on the first 2 sentences of your pitch. Now your pitch can be up to 200 words long, but I would not go any further than that. But concentrate on the first 2 lines and make sure those first 2 lines have everything you need to tell them about your story. Because what a journalist does when they get a pitch and then they open it, they top and tail. So they look at the top of the email and go, okay, look, that's interesting. And then they look at the bottom to see if you may have put something interesting at the bottom that they might have missed. And then they decide in that instance whether or not they're going to go ahead with your story or not. Now, number 2, they test you before they trust you. And how do they do this? You send in your pitch and they're really interested to work with you. They're working on a deadline. The first thing they're going to do is Google you. Next, they're going to look at LinkedIn and Twitter or X, and they're going to start to form a picture about you in their mind. And if they go on to places like Facebook or LinkedIn and you're talking about something completely different over there than you are in your pitch, there's going to be a bit of a mismatch there. So whatever you're doing on social media needs to somewhat reflect what you're pitching journalists about. So they start to form a picture in their mind that You are somebody who's actually active on social media and who is coming across as an expert. Then the next thing they're going to do is they're going to look to see if you've been in any other publication before. Now, you might have been in a local newspaper 3 years ago, and you might think that's completely irrelevant now, but it's completely relevant because the journalist is going to go and look and see who's the journalist that wrote that piece. First thing they're going to do is they're going to contact that journalist and ask them, what was that person like to work with? Were they quick to get back? Did they give good quotes? Were they interesting? Were they somebody that I could rely on as a source for future stories? Because so many people don't realize, but journalists talk to each other all the time. National journalists talk to local, radio journalists talk to broadcast, podcasts talk to national television journalists. They all talk to each other. When I worked in journalism for 15 years, I spoke to journalists from all different niches, all different areas. We always talked to each other. And often when I was looking for a news source for a story, I would check them out. And if I knew the journalists that had worked with them before, I would go and ask those key questions. And if I didn't like what I heard, your pitch got instantly deleted. So always remember, even if it's just a local magazine or a local publication or a small niche publication, be professional and be kind because it will come back to bite you later on down the road because journalists talk to each other. Number three, some journalists, not all, but some journalists do ignore you on purpose. And the reason they do this is they want to see if you are really, really serious about this story. Because journalists are what we call blanketly pitched every day. They get hundreds of pitches, and oftentimes these pitches are pitched to loads of other journalists all at the same time. The email goes out, boom, to maybe 500 journalists at once. They're going to see, are you actually really invested in this story? Are you going to come back and ask me, is it of any interest? And come back with something a little bit more interesting that might pique my interest. So journalists often wait for a better follow up before they get back to you. And following up, even if it's just once, increases the success of your pitch by 30%. Yes, 30%. So if the journalist is ignoring you, it doesn't mean they haven't seen your pitch. Some journalists ignore you for this specific reason. They want to know, how serious are you about this story? How serious are you about this story and its value to readers? And if your follow up is strategic, they will take a lot of notice of that. Number four, they love drama and controversy. I don't know any journalist that doesn't love some drama and controversy. It is what gets people interested in stories. So when I worked in journalism, somebody that said something that went against the norm was hugely refreshing. It was refreshing for us as journalists, but also refreshing to our audience. Now, journalists will never admit this, but they do love drama. But as long as it's factual, newsworthy, and industry relevant. So they've got to tick the boxes, and it also cannot land them in any trouble. So sometimes, if a story is very controversial, it will need to be checked by legal first before it goes live. But where does this leave you? If you are going down the controversial route, you also need to be ready to see that headline in print, online, on social media. You need to be comfortable with waking up the next day and seeing it all over the place if the story gets picked up. Two things to note here. Controversial headlines get 30% more engagement. So that's why journalists love them so much. And journalists will always favour angles that challenge the norm. So offering a unique perspective is always worthwhile if you can stand over it. And often you'll find that if there is a controversial or dramatic element to your story, journalists, and often it will be editors, but journalists and editors will rewrite it a little bit to make it more dramatic. And number 5, journalists are not reading your entire pitch. They are scanning and scanning. They're scanning all day long. They're scanning stuff that comes into them from other journalists. They're scanning things that they see on the television screen in the newsroom, and they're also scanning their emails. They don't read most of what you send. That's why it's so important to have your key elements at the top of your email, and then have bullet points within the center of your email highlighting other key things that you think may be of interest to them. And most journalists skim an email in 7 seconds. So you've really only got 7 seconds to get their attention. So front load your message. Absolutely. Every time. And front load your follow up. And always know that journalists are always looking for stories. Just because your story was binned the first time doesn't mean that the next time you pitch it's not more successful or stands a better chance of success. Because just because it doesn't work now, it doesn't mean that you should give up and not carry on pitching. I encourage you to pitch, because you will get better at it as you go along. Okay, so they are the top 5 things that journalists will not tell you, but these are what they use to decide on whether they're going to use your story or not. So let's have a little bit of a recap. So they test you before they trust you, meaning they go and check you out, see what you've done elsewhere. They skim pitches in under 7 seconds. They love a bold, newsworthy angle, but make sure you can stand over it. And they ignore long-winded emails because they only read the first 2 lines. And if that gets their attention, they'll top and tail and go, okay, yeah, I'm going to look in the middle. I'm going to look for elements of this that I can also use. And they sometimes wait for follow-ups so they know that you are serious about getting this story out into the world. I hope you have found this super useful. Please like and subscribe to my channel because this kind of content can really help businesses and brands grow grow much quicker and build your authority online and with your audiences. I hope to see you in my next video.